the Shoemakers and the Elf. Enjoy the show.
Once upon a time, there was a little old shoemaker and his wife. They didn't have much money, but they were very happy because they were such hard workers. Well, every day when they woke up, the shoemaker looked at his watch and said,
Time to go to work. Yes, dear.
So they went right downstairs into their shop, and each day they only had enough money for one piece of leather. And they worked and polished the leather and softened and shined it and cut it out. And at the end of the day, they were exhausted. They were so tired they had worked so hard. The shoemaker looked at his watch and said,
Time to go to bed. Let's leave the leather on the table and finish in the morning. Good idea.
Miss Robertson forgot our prop, the door. There's a door here. I'm so sorry. It's in the other hall. Well, the shoemaker and his wife went right upstairs and straight to sleep. Well, one night, at the stroke of midnight, into the workshop scampered three little pointy-eared elves, and they looked up on the table and said,
What beautiful leather! Let's make some shoes.
And so they did. They began stitching and sewing and hammering and sewing and stitching, and when they finished, they made a pair of the most beautiful shoes the village had ever seen. And they placed them on the table and said,
Ta-da!
and they scampered away as quickly as they came. Well, when the shoemaker and his wife woke up the next morning, once again he looked at his watch and said,
Time to go to work. Yes, dear.
they couldn't believe what they saw.
What beautiful shoes. Who made these? I have no idea.
Well, they couldn't believe it. Already at the door was a shopper, get the bag, please, was a shopper waiting to buy.
Ding dong. I'll get it. Okay. Good morning, Brennan. Hi. Good morning. How may I help you? What beautiful shoes. What beautiful shoes. Thank you. Have a student tossed. Only one gold coin. Only one. I will pay you two.
Well, the shoemaker and his wife were so happy they were getting extra money, and the girl shopper was so happy she got the best shoes in the world.
Bye. Come again soon. Bye. Bye.
Well, the shoemaker and his wife were so happy they had enough money to buy 2 pieces of leather this time. So, once again, like every day, they worked and stretched the leather and they polished and shined it. By the end of the day, they were getting very tired. They cut it out, and the shoemaker looked at his watch and said,
Time to go to bed. Yes, dear. Let's leave the leather on the table and finish in the morning.
So they did. Once again, they went straight upstairs and went fast asleep. Well, again, at the stroke of midnight, into the workshop scampered 3 little pointy-eared elves, and they looked up on the table and said,
What beautiful leather! Let's make some shoes.
and so they did. They began stitching and sewing and hammering and sewing and stitching, and when they finished, they made 2 of the most beautiful pair of shoes the village had.